أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين. Inshallah, everyone is doing well, and I send you my congratulations on the birth anniversary of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam inside the Holy Kaaba. When we look at this great event, and we see that is it possible, first of all, that someone can be born inside the Kaaba? We look at the books of history, we look at the books of narration, and it shows us, for example, Al-Alama Al-Amini in the book of Al-Ghadir mentions 16 sources that are Ahlul Sunnah have, in Sunni sources, that Imam Ali alayhi salam was born inside the Kaaba. And he brings 50 sources from the Shia that Imam Ali alayhi salam was born inside the Kaaba. And he mentions poetry, because one of the issues that for us to be able to understand history, we're looking at all contexts. So he's looking at poetry from the 14th to the 20th century. And he's examining that, and he brings about 41 issues or examples of poetry that we have. That Imam Ali alayhi salam was born inside the Holy Kaaba. And to top all this off, we have from the Sunni sources, there's a book called Al-Mustadrak ala Sahihain. It is a book that was written by Al-Hakim al-Nishaburi. He is a muhaddith, and he completed the book of Al-Bukhari and Al-Muslim with the conditions that they had. And he mentions that this, not only did it happen, he mentions, but he says that it is mutawatir, meaning that it is frequently cited. It is frequently cited so much that it becomes, gives a certainty that this is not something that could just come about. So this is the first question. We see that the birth of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Holy Kaaba is an issue that is both in Shia sources and Sunni sources. But what is the significance? What is the importance of being born inside the Kaaba? What does it mean for us? When you look at the Holy Quran and you look at Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 125, and you read, أَن طَهِرَ بَيْتِي لِطَائِفِينَ وَالْعَاكِفِينَ وَرُكَّعِ السُّجُودِ. You read that, for example, purify my house. Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Ismail were instructed about the house of God to purify this house. And for those that perform tawaf, and for those that are staying there in worship, and those who bow and prostrate in prayer. So you understand that the house of God is the Bayt of God, is a place of that is, first of all, needs tahara, that is purified. Second, you understand it is a place of worship. So it is not generally a normal place for a child to be born, unless that child is an exception. Unless that baby that is coming is going to be someone that is going to be very unique. Unless that child or that baby is going to be pure and purified, as Imam Ali alayhi salam was truly purified in Ayat al-Tathir, in the purification verse, that doesn't talk about the Ahlul Bayt according to Shia and Sunni, that it refers to Imam Ali. And not that it's only repelling, not that it's taking away, something that is impure away from Ahlul Bayt. It is repelling impurities. That the Ahlul Bayt were never impure. Second of all, Imam Ali alayhi salam is the symbol of worship of God. The house of God, the Holy Kaaba, is a place of worship. And therefore, when Imam Ali alayhi salam is born there, it shows that this person is very special, and he's going to be the embodiment of the worship of God, going to be the embodiment of Tawheed. And not only was he born around, say, inside the masjid, he was born inside the Holy Kaaba, which is extraordinary. Imam Ali alayhi salam is Abul Ajaib. He is the father of wonders. So what is the significance of this then? So Imam Ali alayhi salam is born in the Kaaba by Shia Sunni sources. Imam Ali alayhi salam is born in a place that is going to be, that is pure, that is a place of worship. So what does this mean? We can say it this way, understand this way, that Imam Ali is an ayah, a sign of God. We are surrounded, brothers and sisters, with signs of God around us. The vast deserts, when you go into the deserts, when you go into the wilderness, the forests, all of these are a sign. When you look into the sky, and you look in the afaq, and you see above you the celestial bodies, you see the galaxies, and however great you think space is, it's greater than whatever you could imagine. You see perfect order. And according to the intelligent design theory, or the theological argument, when you see order, when you see organization, it leads you into believing in an organizer that is intellectual, that has capability, qudra, and is intellectual. So these are all signs of God. We come from looking and observing the creation of God into realizing who our creator is, and that we have an intelligent, a wise, we have a powerful creator. In the same way, this creator that has put everything as a sign for us, what kind of sign is it that Imam Ali is born in the Kaaba? We can understand that it's showing us that this person that is coming to this world is someone very special. Pay attention, pay attention. And you see, in the same way that Imam Ali, his birth was unparalleled, was magnificent. The same way his life, he is truly Abul Ajaib, the father of wonders. In a hadith, Imam Ali alayhi salam explains the fact from Al-Kafi we have, مَا لِلَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ آيَةٌ هِيَ أَكْبَرُ مِنِّي. Allah, the Almighty, the Exalted, doesn't have a sign, an ayah that is greater than me. He is saying that I am the greatest sign of God. Because when you look at things and you reflect about them, it shows you the Creator. So how come when you look at the moon, you can't remember God? But what about looking at a perfect human being and studying the life of a perfect human being? Does that not show you the existence of God? Does it not show you a capable and intelligent Lord, a powerful Lord? So therefore we see that he says, وَلَا لِلَّهِ مِن نَبِئٍ أَعْظَمُ مِنِّي إِنْ الْكَافِي. And there's no greater event than me. He is the greatest event. Of course, but when we say these things, we are very cautious at the same time that people don't misunderstand these things and say, okay, then what about the Holy Prophet of Islam? When we talk about the signs of Imam Ali, and he's talk about the greatness of Ali ibn Abi Talib, also in the same way, you are praising the Holy Prophet of Islam. Why? Because the Holy Prophet was his teacher at the age of 5. He taught him divine knowledge. He taught him the knowledge that the Prophet of Islam had. Therefore, when you praise the student, you're also praising the teacher. Imam Ali alayhi salam himself says, إِنَّمَا أَنَا عَبْدٌ مِّنْ عَبِيدِ Muhammad. I am of the slaves. I am a slave of the slaves of Muhammad. I am the servant of the servants of Muhammad. So at the same time, you're praising the noble Prophet of Islam because you're praising that person that was always with the Prophet of Islam. So Imam Ali, but each Imam, each infallible, there's something particular to them. For example, like the dirt of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, where he's buried, where he has been martyred in Karbala. That dirt has a certain khususiyah, has a special characteristic, particularly something that's particular to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that the other Imams, we don't have this. In the same way, Imam Ali alayhi salam, what is particular to him is that Allah is showing his greatness. Allah is showing and honoring him, because Ali means high. So he wants us to pay special attention And maybe so this is so the Ummah can attach themselves to Imam Ali alayhi salam. That the Prophet, how many hadith do we have and how many verses of the Quran do we have proving the Imamat of Imam Ali? Multiple verses, many verses in the Holy Quran, many hadith, the Shia Sunni accept the proof to us very clearly that Imam Ali alayhi salam is our Imam. So therefore, God wants to show us a sign so that we can attach the people after the Prophet, the nation after the Prophet of Islam, will refer to him and say, well, he was born in the Kaaba. We should follow him after the Prophet of Islam. And that for us, that we are living 1400 years afterwards and we're celebrating this day, that we're saying this is someone special. His birth was special. And the place that he was martyred was also special. He was struck in the masjid of God, in the house of God as well. So Imam Ali alayhi salam has many beautiful narrations about him, many beautiful stories. And I'm sure all of you brothers and sisters know when you ever read about Imam Ali, you're always truly amazed about him. At the age of 5, the Prophet of Islam raised him. He was the perfect example of a follower, a true companion of the Prophet. And you see that when the tribes came to assassinate the Prophet of Islam, and many people gathered around him to kill him, and it was going to be a certain death, you see that Imam Ali alayhi salam slept in the bed of the Prophet, slept in that place that was going to be the place of the target of swords. Imam Ali, without any hesitation, slept so the Prophet could go to Medina and could go to migration. And what happens when he does such a sincere act? Again, Allah honors him. How many verses do we have from the actions of Ali ibn Abi Talib? Again, this is another verse. وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ. And of the people is he who sells himself seeking means to the approval of Allah. It says, yashri nafsa. He sells himself. How much sincere must you be? How much must you sacrifice? That Allah in the Quran says there are those that sell themselves for the approval of Allah. We sometimes give, it is difficult for us to do some of the wajibat. I know you're living in a Western country. It is difficult. Sometimes it takes maybe 5% energy, 10% energy of your life is for Islam. But Imam Ali alayhi salam was 100%. He gave everything that he had, every second of his life with full intention for God, that Allah says he sold himself. So when you sell yourself, what do you gain? When there's a transaction, you sell yourself, you give yourself for God, but he gets what? Mardatullah, he gets the approval of Allah. Not only do they get the approval of God, God is satisfied with them, but they become the criterion for the satisfaction of God. Whoever loves Ali is a mu'min now. Not only is God satisfied with Imam Ali, but God is saying that the criterion for Iman, to be a true faithful person, you have to love Ali ibn Abi Talib. And whoever has hatred of him is also at the same time is a munafiq, a hypocrite. Very interesting. We have so many hadith like this. These aren't all Shia hadith. These are Sunni hadith as well. But how can we understand that there was a caliphate of Bani Umayyah that for 80, 90 years used to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib? They used to curse him. They used to do sab. Sab means to use vulgar language against him. One person forgot to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib after Friday prayers, after prayers. And he was walking back. He says, oh, I forgot to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. So he begins 1,000 times, 100 or 1,000 times, begins to curse Ali ibn Abi Talib. That place the Bani Umayyah have as a masjid. This is a holy place because this is the place where that person forgot to curse Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. Now he remembers and it became the masjid. So you see that the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam is a criteria for us. this sign from God. And that how can you have hadith that at the same time talk about that Imam Ali's hatred is hypocrisy, and you have a caliphate that you have to do bay'at to, and you have people that fought directly against Ali ibn Abi Talib, and they are still people that they deserve their bay'at in history. How come the ulama and these people, they did bay'at to the Bani Umayyah? So we understand Imam Ali alayhi salam, his life is full of wonders. At the same time, we talked a little bit about his madlumiyat. He's also awwal madlum. He's the most oppressed. He is absolutely great. And at the same time, he's absolutely kind. So when we look at the life of Imam Ali, again, when Ali ibn Musa Rida alayhi salam was asked about in the Quran, which verse in the Quran is the best verse about Imam Ali, it shows the virtue of Imam Ali the most. He mentioned this verse, Ta'alaw nad'u abna'ana wa abna'akum wa nisa'ina wa nisa'ikum wa anfusana wa anfusakum, which is verse of Mubahila 361. And when the Christians came to challenge the Holy Prophet in dua, the Holy Prophet was going to bring the best of people. And he brought, instead of his sons, he brought Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. This is in Sahih Muslim, Tirmidhi, in books of tafsir like Ibn Kathir, also in books of history like Ibn Athir. You see in Tabari, books of tafsir, books of history, books of the Sahih of Tirmidhi and Muslim, that it was these people only that the Prophet of Islam brought. He brought Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein. And for Nisa, which is plural for women, he brought one person only, Lady Fatima. And then and as I'm saying, Imam Ali is full of wonders. So anfusana, bring yourself. So the Prophet of Islam could have just brought himself and for himself, because it says bring these three categories and they're fulfilled. But he also with himself, he brought Ali ibn Abi Talib, anfusana wa anfusakum. And Imam Ali alayhi salam became the nafs of the Prophet. So this is the highest virtue of Imam Ali alayhi salam in the Quran 361. Study this verse. I want 3 verses for you, brothers and sisters, to have down that prove Imam Ali's imamah. One is verse of Mubahila. When Imam Ali is the nafs of the Prophet, it means he has all the positions of the Prophet. When he says someone is the soul of someone else, when someone is someone else, it means also he has the same responsibilities as the other person. So when you say someone equates to Prophet Muhammad, it is obligatory to follow him. It says he is the nafs of the Prophet. When someone is the soul of the Prophet of Islam, it also means when you come to verses of the Quran, you refer to him. When it comes to judgment, you refer to him. And when it comes to leadership, you refer to him. It's very interesting. There's a hadith, and this is in the book of Al-Mahasin wal-Masawi of Bayhaqi. A person comes to Muhammad ibn Abi Aisha bil Basra and asks, Ya Abd al-Rahman, Man afdalu ashab Rasulillah? Who is the highest of the companions of the Prophet? And here he names 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, around 9 people. 9 companions this person mentions, and Muhammad ibn Abi Aisha mentions 9 people. This is in Sunni sources. So the narrator says, فَقَالَ لَهُ فَأَيْنَ عَلِي ibn Abi Talib? What about Ali ibn Abi Talib? I said, who is the highest of the companions? He didn't mention Ali ibn Abi Talib. He says, قَالَ يَا هَذَا تُسْتَفْتَنِي عَنْ أَصْحَابِهِ أَمْ عَنْ نَفْسِي? Have you asked about me, about his companions, or about his soul, about himself, the Prophet himself, his nafs? بَلْ عَنْ أَصْحَابِهِ. I asked about his companions, not about the Prophet. Then he says, in Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, and he reads the verse of Mubahila. It says, فَكَيْفَ يَكُونُ أَصْحَابُهُ مِثْلَ نَفْسِهِ? How can his companions be like the nafs of the Prophet? So it says, you asked me about the companions. And he skipped Ali ibn Abi Talib because he didn't ask me about the soul of the Prophet. So you see, he is Abul Ajaib. When you look at what the greatest sign, Allah equates Imam Ali to the Holy Prophet of Islam in the Quran. Do you have any higher virtue than this? Then you, brothers and sisters, read about the purification verse, 33. Read about the verse of walayat, that your wali is Allah and the Prophet, and those that give charity while they're doing ruku'. These are 3 verses that we can look at, and you see that Imam Ali alayhi salam is full of wonders. You see that at the end, he's with the Prophet of Islam in all the battles. He beats champions that could, one person of them, like Abdul Wad, would destroy a tribe sometimes single-handedly. Imam Ali comes, and hits him and wins, and his strike is better than the actions of jinn and ins in the day of Khandaq. And you see in the day of Khaybar, and you see how he supported the Prophet of Islam until the Prophet passes away. And then his role is this champion, all the strength that he had, with the dhul fagar that he has to put the dhul fagar back in the sheath. Because of Islam, he has to be quiet. And his patience now, his sign now, is that he has to be patient. And this, again, he was another sign. Some of the Jews that were there and witnessed Khaybar, in the fort of Khaybar, and they saw what Imam Ali did. He became Muslim at that time. He says, how did you become Muslim? In the books of history, it says that I saw this person that they're dragging on the streets. They're taking him. What they did to Lady Fatima, his wife, they attacked his home. This person, I know what he is doing is for God. Because I saw what he did. I saw what he did in Khaybar. And those that see what he did in battles, beating champions that one person could beat 50, 100 people. Beating such champions. But now it's a time of patience until Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the year of 35, they come to him after the death of Uthman, they come to him to lead the Muslims. And Imam Ali begins to rule in a way that the world has not seen before. Rule in the way of justice, what the world is thirsty for today. Ruling with justice. And you see him divide the treasury, the money of the Muslims evenly, and will tell gold and silver, go and deceive someone else, and eat bread, harsh bread with salt while he is the ruler, and will take food, even though he's a champion. And usually champions that have killed many people are cold-hearted or hard-hearted. But his kindness is also the same way he's infinitely powerful, we could say, or infinitely strong, as a perfect human being can be. He's also infinitely kind. And he takes the morsels and would give it to the aitam, and would give it to those that are orphans, and would say in his wasiyah, Allah fil aitam, fear God in regards to the orphan. So this is Imam Ali alayhi salam, the great sign of God, that he was born in Kaaba was a miracle, and his entire life was a miracle. But what does this mean for us, brothers and sisters? Imam Ali alayhi salam was born inside the Kaaba. What does it mean for us? It means for the followers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, and for Muslims, and for everyone, all of humanity, there is a role model for us to follow. It means that there is happiness, that the same angels that criticized God and says, why did you create such a creation? That when they saw Ali ibn Abi Talib, I'm sure they were amazed that a person could be so perfect, a person can be so complete in worship, as a father, as you could say, as a son that he is to Abu Talib, and as a follower of the Prophet Muhammad, and as a ruler later on, and as a lecturer, as a speaker. You see that his life in Nahj al-Balagha is full of speeches and letters and short sayings, full of wonders. It means for us, it is a big source of pride, is a big source of happiness that we have Ali, that we have someone that really, if you really study his life, you fall in love. You see that he's an ayah, he is a sign of God. There are Christian scholars, writers, novelists that have compiled and written about Imam Ali, and they don't know. The Christian says, I cannot say if Jesus is higher or if Ali alayhi salam is higher. I don't know which one we could say is higher. If I say Ali ibn Abi Talib, if I say Jesus is higher than Ali alayhi salam from what he read, And he says that, my aql, my wisdom can't accept this. But if I were to say that Ali is higher than Jesus, then my religion cannot accept this. We see George Jordan, for example, a person that would ditch class to read Nahj al-Balagha. Maybe he read it around 800, 600 times. That would say if the world were taken away, all its blessings would be taken away, and then one more Ali ibn Abi Talib were to come, then that would be worth it. Because the justice, and he wrote, the voice of justice, of human justice, a book about Imam Ali alayhi salam, and he compares what Imam Ali does, comparing it to the United Nations Charter, and said he single-handedly wrote the rules that he had for justice. The United Nations Human Rights Charter was hundreds or thousands of people. When it comes to bragging about writing such a thing, the United Nations bragged and said, look, we made the UN Human Rights Charter, but Imam Ali didn't brag. But he says the most important difference is that Imam Ali alayhi salam he wrote human rights and stood by human rights, and his sword was always against the oppressor. The United Nations Charter, after written, they, started wars, and they abused people. They didn't abide by the same rules that they made. So for us, we see that, a Christian, it compares Imam Ali's justice to the UN, Human Rights Charter. And he says, this is better. His human rights is better. This is for us a source of pride. And that whenever we look at the life of Imam Ali alayhi salam, we get excited. It is the sweetness of faith. We have hadith that believing in the Imam is wajadat ta'ama halawat imane. That if a person believes in the Imam, the person follows the Imam, he begins to love religion. He begins to taste the sweetness of faith. Imam Ali is the sweetness of faith. He is the sign of God, the complete sign of God. And when you remember him, you get very excited. And this is what it means for us. This is the significance that it has. That Imam Ali was born in the Kaaba, in Shia and Sunni sources. And it implies that he is a very great sign of God. And it means for us that we should be very happy, and that we should be very, in such times, joyous and proudful, and have pride in the fact that Imam Ali alayhi salam is our Imam. And when you begin to love Imam Ali, as I'm sure you brother or you sister that you love Imam Ali, you start to become like him. You start to want to become like him. And you want to become complete. You want to have your worship be complete. And you want to have your duties in your family be complete. And when you go to work, you also want to have a halal income. And therefore, this is the best way, that in such remembrances of Imam Ali, that this is the best way for us to change ourselves, is to remember Imam Ali, and you slowly your heart gets filled with the light of Imam Ali, and you start to become like him. And this light is a source of guidance for you, and it is a source of inspiration, that you get courageous from Imam Ali alayhi salam. You become a worshiper of Allah like Imam Ali alayhi salam, and you become very compassionate like Imam Ali alayhi salam. So this is what we can learn from the 13th of Rajab, a very holy time period for us. Inshallah, we do dua, we pray that may we all have the ziyarah of Imam Ali alayhi salam in this world, and the intercession in the hereafter, that Allah will fill our hearts with the love of Imam Ali. And if our hearts are filled with the love of Imam Ali, we will reach completion. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajin farajah.